What's up, guys? We are back with the 1950s of our 61 days of prime time. I'm your host, Hunter Chambers. I'm joined by my co-host, Chad and Carrie. How's it going, guys?
It's going great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we finally had our 1950s of the 61 days of prime time, which is great because we're going through the decades. We're going from the 30s to the 2020s. And each decade, we have six movies that we're covering. 10 decades add up to 60 movies. And then at the very end, we're going to do a live stream where we talk about, like on Halloween Day, where we talk about Halloween from 1978, one of the best horror movies, one of the ones that we love to watch and talk about. Um, and yeah, this has been a very daunting task to watch a lot of these movies. We're finally to the 50s, and we have six movies that we're going to discuss today, and we're very excited to get this one in the books. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, without further ado, should we just get into it?
Yeah, we can.
Oh, and by the way, we are going to rank these at the end. So if you haven't seen the other videos, you can go back and watch those, but you can also know that we're going to rank these at the end, which is always very fun to see what rankings everybody has. But first,
Yep.
discuss Strangers on a Train. All right, Hunter, do you want to start
Ooh.
with this one?
Yeah, so I went into this not knowing what it was about. So I kind of went in blind. Just I didn't want to know anything about it. Went in blind. Really, really enjoyed it. Love the mystery behind it. Love the kind of cat and mouse game that's going on in this from our main two guys. And it's like a really good setup for a horror movie. Alfred Hitchcock does a really good job in it. The score is incredible. Um, yeah, this one's actually high up on my list. I really like this movie.
Yeah, Strangers on a Train is very, very interesting because I had heard a little bit about this. Like I'd heard about the general plot of it because I watch critically acclaimed with
Hmm.
Bibbs and Whitney, and they had talked about this one a few times and just kind of explained like generally what the plot was. For some reason, after that, like before I started watching this, I thought the whole thing took place on a train because of the name of the movie and stuff.
The
And then I was,
title.
yeah, I was surprised when they met on the train, talked on the train, and then the rest of the movie was not on the train at all. Well,
Hmm.
except for the end. Um, but yeah, I love the concept. I love how it's like a guy who wants to pull off the perfect murder. It's like you have someone that you want dead. I have someone that I want dead. Let's go ahead and I'll kill someone for you. You kill someone for me. Boom! It's the perfect murder because no one we're strangers. No one would suspect
Hmm.
that. Um, and then you get to see like kind of how that unfolds and how maybe it doesn't go exactly the way he plans. This like psychopath who just loves strangling people and just wants to I guess have fun doing that and terrorizing this guy who it's not necessarily that he wants someone dead. It's just he has an issue with someone, and like it's his ex-wife who won't divorce him or won't sign the papers and stuff, so he can't go and live his life the way he wants to. And so it's not that he like literally wants her dead, but it's like where he, kind of the thing where he's like, it would be nice if she wasn't stopping me from doing the thing that I wanted to. And then this guy kind of takes it literally and, just does it. And then he's like, well, now because I helped you, you owe me one and you have to kill my dad. And it's just ends up being like a whole thing. Like Hunter said, it's a cat and mouse, like, thing. The tension is high. If you've seen Challengers this year, 2024, um,
Hmm.
this got had some Challengers vibes because there's like a big like tennis match that had tension in it and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
you're
I was actually thinking, like, during that scene, I was like, this reminds me of Challengers.
yeah, you're like waiting for the tennis match to end, and there's tension there, and then the guy drops the
Mm.
lighter and like he's trying to like frame him and stuff like that. He drops the lighter, and you're just like slowly reaching his hand to grab it, and you're just like the way Alfred Hitchcock, the master of suspense, is able to create such
Hmm.
great tension that you're just like, what's gonna happen? Like, how is this gonna end? Like, is he gonna get framed? who's going to get caught? Are they both going to get caught? Is one going to go to jail or both? And then it ends on this like crazy, like out of control carousel that's about to fly off the base, and you got children on there, and it's very scary because you're like, you don't want people to die. And Carrie and I noticed that, we're like, well, cops were crazy back then too, apparently, because you had like an unhinged cop apparently that decided, because one guy he suspected of something was running away, that it was okay for him to shoot a gun at a carousel that's full of kids. And we're just like, what the hell is with these like crazy cops? But hey, you gotta create the tension and suspense somehow, I guess. And then you had the one guy who's like, I can solve this, and he crawls under the carousel to go stop it.
I love that guy.
Taking a sweet ass time. And I'm almost in there, like, I was telling Carrie, I was like, I almost kind of wish that guy had been like throughout the movie, where he started the movie, you don't know who the hell that guy is. And then, like, you kind of see a little bit of his life as the movie goes along. And then finally, it's his moment. He's like, I can help. And then he goes into the thing. That might actually make the movie worse. But I was just like, I kind of wanted to
too many storylines going on at that point.
Probably, yeah. Who am I to say I know better than Alfred Hitchcock? But I was just thinking about like how fun that could have been. But ultimately, I think this is a freaking masterpiece. Like, as Alfred Hitchcock knows how to make masterpieces. It dives into the horror because some people might call this more of a thriller, but like it's all about murder and stuff, and it's very very scary. So I adored this one. Carrie, what did you think?
Yeah, I also really, really loved this one. And I had always thought this movie was about two guys who get on a train and they agree to do each other's murders. And each thinks it's a great idea and they're going to do each other's murders, like they agree to it. And it was actually a very different movie than I expected, because it's really just one psychopath being like, hey, you want to do this? And he's just so psychotic that he believes that the other character's name is Guy Haynes. That guy wants him to murder his wife. And yeah, you guys talked about most of it. I would say there was like, it was just, that's what I feel like made the movie creepy, was you have this guy who's like basically a stalker, and he's threatening the guy. His name is Guy. The guy's name is Guy. Threatening him, following him, like interjecting himself into his life and like causing chaos. And like, it was so, and those were the scenes that were so creepy. Like, the tennis scene where everyone else's head is moving with the ball, but the psychotic, what's his name? Bruno Anthony. He's just staring straight at Guy the whole time. That was so creepy. The scene where he's like walking with the cop, Guy is walking with the cop that is tailing him. He looks over, he sees on the steps in the distance, like there's Bruno just staring at him. Like stalkers are unfortunately a very real part of our society. And like, I just thought it was like, those were the most terrifying moments in the movie.
Yeah, as you were talking, it kind of reminded me of the show Killing Eve, where you have like a psychopath and just kind of like keeps popping up into someone's life, and she doesn't really want her there, at least at first. That one's a little bit different, but yeah, you actually reminded me of a lot of these shots that were really creepy. Like, when he's got the police escort and they're walking, and then he just looks and you see like Bruno standing like on some steps on a building.
And the great thing is that it's not a close up on Bruno's face; it's a wide shot. So you just see a random dude, and you're like, I know who that is.
Yeah. Yeah. So the framing of a lot of these things are so perfect. I mean, Hitchcock was just a master filmmaker, and it's just, I've seen so few of his movies. Like, I've seen some, but I've seen so few, and I just every time I watch a movie of his like this, it makes me want to go and watch like all of his movies. Not one of the greatest
same.
like people of all time, apparently, with Alfred Hitchcock, but he was a great filmmaker. So I'm excited to.
I will say
him.
I love the ending of this movie, like from the tennis
Yes.
match being very tense, but then always like standing up to the camera or the clock, and you realize that they're on this kind of. So he's trying to finish up in three sets, but he can't. So now he's actually losing more time, and the more that the game continues, the more time is like running out, and then you as an audience, you start feeling nervous he's not going to make it and he's going to get framed for the murder. I thought that was how the movie was going to end, was that Bruno was going to get away and then he was going to be framed for the murder. So it always kept me at least on the edge of my seat wondering what was going to happen at the end of the film.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to touch on endings a little bit later and how endings could have improved a specific movie we'll talk about later. Carrie already knows what I'm talking about. But you mentioned ending, and I thought you were going to bring up the actual ending of the movie that I thought was really great, because there's he's on the train
on the train.
Yeah, with another guy who says the exact same thing that Bruno said to him at the beginning of the movie, and he's just like, nope.
He's like, nope, screw this.
And the guy's just like,
I love Ruth Roman as Anne. I think Anne Morton. She did a fantastic job, because I thought that they were going to go the route of like, she's not believing him the entire time. Like maybe she suspects that he is, the killer. But then when he comes out and says it, I'm glad that she kind of sticks with him the entire movie. Like she doesn't doubt him after he comes out and tells her what happened.
Yeah. And it really got into like developing this character as like a very sympathetic guy who's like, I don't know what to do, because this Bruno's right. Like, if I go to the police now, they're going to be like, well, he's an
accomplice.
Thank you. And so I like how it kind of plays out, where he has to lie to people he's close to at first, and then like you said, they don't they're just trying to help him figure out after he reveals. But yeah, a great
that
movie.
One guy who did not realize like who Guy was, like his alibi is hilarious. He's like, yeah, I think I partied too much because I've never seen this dude in my life.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, but then I thought that was actually kind of brilliant after that, because then Guy was like, well, does it matter if he knows me? I knew someone who was on that train, so I was on that train. So yeah, I thought that was I feel like the logic of the movie like really works, and it's been well thought out.
Yeah.
So all right, no other thoughts, we can move on. All right, we're moving on to a very strange one. Mother Riley meets the vampire. I'll start with this one. I don't have too much to say, except that this was just a very wacky movie. Apparently, back in the 40s, I guess, or maybe even before, there was a popular British character called Mother Riley that was a guy in drag. Like he dressed in women's clothes and just like played this character named Mother Riley. And then you had Bela Lugosi as Dracula. And it's like, why not have these two popular characters meet, right? Kind of like in our last episode when we covered Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. This is another kind of version of that, I guess. This one is weird, though, because the restoration of this didn't seem very good. Like it was very choppy and stuff and whatnot, and some of it felt like it was sped up. But I also don't even know if that was used for comic effect, because it was like all over the place, this movie, where like Hunter was messaging us, is this a musical? It's like yes and no. A random musical scene will just happen, And then like
there is one musical scene in that whole movie, and I'm like, why is that there?
Yeah, and then you think like maybe it might kind of like get the reins, and then all of a sudden robots are introduced in the movie, and you're like, what the is going on with this? And it's like a weird like supernatural sci-fi comedy, horror comedy, with this woman who gets kidnapped by the vampire. I don't even know if he is like set in the movie to actually be a vampire, or if he just thinks he is, or like really what's going on with that. But she gets there, and like apparently like she foils his plans and stuff like that. But like there's some like the way like the actor who plays Mother Riley like just poses in this and stuff, and just like is very silly. It just makes it very, very funny. A lot of antics that happen in this. There's some scenes that reminded me of Young Frankenstein. So I wonder if like they took that from this when it's like the revolving wall.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have like the classic thing where they get like caught on the wall. It was just like kind of a classic scene there, trope there. Yeah, I don't know if this one had that like good of like a story. I wasn't really like finding like a story in this really, other than a predicament that this woman finds herself in, and a threat that must be stopped, and shenanigans ensue. And I think this is like mostly what the movie is, but it was just so weird that like I oddly really enjoyed it and thought it was very, very funny. So yeah, I quite enjoyed Mother Riley Meets the Vampire. All right, Carrie, what did you think about Mother Riley Meets the Vampire?
Yeah, I agree with kind of what you said, Chad, in that the story is loosely a story here, mostly an excuse for these two characters to get together, except the Dracula character, I guess they probably couldn't use Dracula, so they just call him the vampire the whole time. But all that said, I thought this movie was hilarious, like all the Mother Riley bits. And yeah, if you like British humor, like really silly British humor, like stuff like Monty Python, I think you will actually really like this, because I thought it was like very in line with that type of British humor, and I laughed quite a bit. So, Hunter, what did you think?
So that's probably why I did not enjoy it as much as I think I should have, is because I don't find myself laughing a lot at British humor. So for me, this movie is actually not that good. As you guys said, the story is it's not even a story. It's just a bunch of actions that lead to these two characters meeting. I did not realize that Mother Riley was a guy dressed up as a woman. I thought it was just just a woman. So that's interesting to know. Bela Lugosi does a weird. He's acting very weird and strange in this movie. I thought he was going to be more of the straight character, the more in the line of the Dracula, more scary, and then have that work off the humor of Riley. But that didn't work. He seems to be just as goofy as her. Yeah, I did not enjoy this movie.
Oh, and speaking of Bela Lugosi, though, I just wanted to highlight that this is our last Bela Lugosi movie of the series, I think. And we've had 4. And they have so far spanned each decade that we've covered.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that doesn't have to be the last time. We'll have to throw on some more Bela Lugosi movies the next 61 Days of Primetime next year. But before we stop this movie, and while I do want to say I totally understand why Hunter would not enjoy it, but it caught Carrie and I on a very silly night where we're just like,
and that's awesome.
We're just like, this is ridiculous. Like, whatever.
But like, I also think the restoration, as Chad said, it was so off. It took me out of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, the way some movies aren't like as well preserved and stuff like that. Not necessarily the movie's fault, but yeah, just it sucks. But we were still able to get some good laughs out of it. And,
Yeah.
That's gonna make it like something more enjoyable than if you go back to our 1940s episode, The Devil Bat, or you go back to our 1930s White Zombie. Things that we might not have loved as much. And just a brief note before we move on: if you are looking for this movie, it's hard to find sometimes, and it's gone by like a lot of different titles. So we've been calling it Mother Riley Meets the Vampire. It's also called Old Mother Riley Meets the Vampire. It's also called Vampire Over London, and then also apparently called My Son, the Vampire. So
and
I don't know.
It's on Tubi for free, but it's under Vampires Over London, right?
Yeah, so it can be hard to find, but once you do, let us know what you think.
Tubi surprisingly has a lot of these older movies that I did not think they would have.
Yeah, Tubi's really great. But yeah, if you end up watching this, let us know what you think about it in the comments, because might be a little divisive. I don't know, but definitely a weird one. But we can move on to Godzilla.
I love that poster. That's a cool poster.
Yes, I took I guess an original Japanese Godzilla poster. But yeah, this is very interesting, especially after last year that we had Oppenheimer win Best Picture, that talks about like the making of the atomic bomb, and now we get to see a movie that was made after that was dropped, and kind of like after the effects were felt not too long after that. So it's very, very interesting one. Carrie, do you want to start with Godzilla?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start with this. This is the classic Godzilla. I don't know how much I feel like it's one of the most popular characters in all of like culture. This is the first time, though, I think, Chad, you as well. I don't know about you, Hunter. But definitely for me, the first time I saw the original Godzilla movie.
Same with me, first time.
Yeah, I've seen, Chad and I watched one or two of the later Godzilla movies. We've seen the new ones that have been coming out since 2014. And
have you seen -1?
Yes, and -1, and I didn't realize, -1 really does in some ways recreates the plot of the original Godzilla movie, which I didn't realize. It adds a bunch of stuff as well. But a lot of it's extremely similar. But this one was such a fascinating watch. I love Godzilla. I love seeing Godzilla, like the monster, and I love his roar, and I think it's so much fun. But this movie is I knew the movie was a metaphor for post-war Japan, but I didn't realize how much so, and really about it being partially about this undefeatable enemy and using some of the worst, most deadly technology against an undefeatable enemy. It really, really tracks with World War II. So I thought it was so fascinating from that standpoint. I really, really enjoyed this movie. What did you think, Hunter?
Yeah, I really love this movie. So as I said, this was my first watch of the original Godzilla movie. But I just got done watching -1 for the first time recently, because we did a Sisters Horse Dash on Godzilla -1, so I watched that in preparation for that. And watching them back, pretty much back to back, you see a lot of similarities, but I love how both of them talk about the same thing, but they're done completely differently. This one really harks on the fact of what the fallout of a nuclear attack is. And what I love is our main hero, he creates this almost like an atomic bomb to stop Godzilla, but he doesn't want to use it because of the fact that like if it gets in the wrong hands, then it's the same thing over and over and over again. I did some research and watched the Dead Meat podcast episode on this one that they had, and the things that they brought up are really interesting about like not once is the US mentioned in this movie or other international countries. It's just about post-war Japan and like what Japan is doing in the fallout of a nuclear attack. And I love that because it centralizes it. It's like, all right, this is our fight, our war. Like, how are we going to stop a threat like this? Um, but yeah, I really love this. I think Godzilla is actually scary in this one. I think as the later Toho movies he gets kind of goofier and goofier, and he becomes more of comedic in a way that I don't think the original creator wanted him to be. But I think this is a perfect mix of being scary, but also like using really good practical effects. But also, I love the miniatures, like the miniatures city that they used to have Godzilla destroy. I think that looks really good. But also, I just love the story about it and how it tracks with historical facts. So this one is actually high up on my list as well.
Yeah, for a second there, Hunter, I wasn't sure because of your shirt if you were talking about Godzilla or Freddy Krueger. When you're like, yeah, in the first one he was actually really scary, and then
That's
later
true.
he got really goofy and silly.
That's true.
Started cracking jokes, and
Yep.
it's like, so I guess they have a similar path there. And it's fun that you guys bring up Godzilla -1 because we may or may not be talking about that at some point down the road. I'm just kidding. We did if you go back to our 1930s episode when we announced the 61 days, we showed the entire list of everything we're covering. We will be covering Godzilla -1 a little bit later. So it is really interesting that we're able to cover the original Godzilla. Carrie and I had tried to watch it a little bit ago, and like things got in the way, and we just like never finished it. And then we finally were able to watch it here. We actually own the Criterion like Godzilla collection of like
that's cool
portion of them. But yeah, we've also for a debate one time I watched one of the later ones, the All Out Attack one, what it's called. I don't think we've seen all of Shin Godzilla, but I do want to go through and actually watch that and watch a lot of the other ones. But this one I thought was interesting. It was really good for the time, but also like I'm just not sure if I like dug the way it was shot. It's one of those where like it was so dark a lot of the time. So I feel like this is one that might have been the best that these filmmakers could have done at the time. And then later on we get like these really rich stories with Godzilla, and he's able to be constructed in like a way that feels almost more believable, like when you get to a Godzilla -1 or Shin Godzilla type of deal. But in this one I still really liked a lot of the effects that they used, like you were talking about the models, the way Godzilla looks. It kind of looks a little cheesy, but then also really scary when you just like think about the ramifications and just how it was forged from the minds of people that were affected by such horrors of World War II and the bombs and things like that, because they were like the only like people that this happened to. Such a tragedy of thinking that we could play God and like control and do something like this. And then like if you watch Oppenheimer, they're like we've created like a thing that's just never going to end, and people are always going to try to top and stuff like that. So it is great to see how, I mean, it's terrible. There's no greatness that comes from something that happened to the Japanese people back then, but it is really interesting to see how they took that and made it into art. You know, I mean, not just Godzilla, but you have like Akira and stuff like that that are also
Mhm.
just like talking about like you know a that's the word, a dystopia. Thank you, Chad.
Mhm.
You're welcome, Chad. And you know, but to see but to see Godzilla in this light, I think it is really really cool to know why this was created. You talked about like how they don't mention the U.S. or opposing
Mhm.
forces or anything like that. You could almost like see Godzilla as the U.S. or like some
Mhm.
like monumental like threat that just is an unstoppable force like an atomic bomb
Mhm.
that's coming for you, and there's really no way to stop it. And at one point they're like, this thing can't be killed, and it's just like just the thought of like something that's gonna happen that you can't stop.
Mhm.
And so it's just terrifying. So that's where the
Mhm.
true horror comes from, I think, is just how to wrap your head around something like this happening to you or someone you love, or just even people like are like nearby.
Mhm.
um, just sounds terrifying. But yeah, it is interesting to see them get into the morality of it and like trying to figure out like if they have their own kind of like weapon that can be used like this, should they use it? And then they're like, you know, no, this shouldn't be used. This is
Mhm.
not something that you do to other people. Like, it doesn't matter, like, you know, what happened at some point, like, you know, in a military kind of attack and stuff like that. But it's like after that, it's like you can't just drop bombs on people. That's just it's just not something that's. I'm sorry, I don't want to get into like the politics of it like too
No, no.
hard, but it just like really. There's a reason why I think a lot of these Godzilla movies can steer really hard in to the drama of things as well as
Mhm.
the horror, is because it is very sad and it's also very scary, um, in both those ways. So I feel like there's a lot behind this movie that you can discuss and really get
Mhm.
into. But also, you know, even though I said like it's just I had a problem seeing a lot of the stuff, you know, in the movie a lot of the times. So I think it's really, really good, but could have been better had, you know, maybe the cinematography been a little better. Um,
So, two interesting facts. One, this budget was only $900,000.
that a bit,
So
yeah,
that's a short budget. It ended up grossing 2.25 million, which is a great return. But also, the original form of Godzilla was not going to be this lizard dinosaur creature. It was actually planned to be a giant octopus, which I don't know how I would feel about that.
It
yeah,
makes so much more sense though, because Godzilla comes from the sea, and like a giant
Mhm.
octopus coming from the sea would make a lot more sense than
instead of like a big dinosaur. But like, you know, I do think like the construction and the design is just so cool to think about, like a huge monster that comes from the depths that no one's ever
Mhm.
been to. It's just terrifying. And like I also like I always think Godzilla is going to be like really big because of like how he's portrayed in some of the like Americanized Godzilla
Mhm.
movies. It's like taller than the Empire State Building, or just like so huge. But in like the original one, he's like 160 feet tall, which is tall, but not like as tall as you might think
Mhm.
Godzilla might be.
And
Um,
also, the creators of Godzilla said that they took a lot of influence from the original King Kong movie.
yeah,
So the fact that they're now like crossing over in like nowadays is really cool because they Godzilla's creators mentioned King Kong being inspired by that movie to create Godzilla.
yeah, yeah. That's really cool to see that. But yeah, you mentioning the budget though is really interesting because it kind of like shows like what I said about like it not being filmed the best, but then you're like, well,
Hmm.
you can't really fault it. They didn't have that big of a budget, and
Yeah.
look what they did for that budget. So that's actually really
Hmm.
impressive. But yeah, Carrie, did you start with Godzilla?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Does anybody else have anything to say on Godzilla before we move on?
Nope.
No? All right. So we're moving on to Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the
Ooh.
original one from the 50s. So Hunter, do you want to start with this one?
Sure. I absolutely love this. This was my first time watching this version of it. Um, I love the idea because I've seen um, movies either like a remake of this one, but completely with the same name, or movies that have taken from this and was inspired by it. But to see the original one and you really see how much those movies took from this one, I love the setting. I love how you can't really tell if somebody's an alien or if someone is, you know, really them. So it messes with your head of like, well, should I trust this person? Should I not trust this person? What's going on? The claustrophobia of this movie is really good because there are a lot of like closed in shots with like people you don't know who they are. The pods are terrifying. The leads are really good. So this again, this one's high up on my list as one of the best ones we watched.
Yeah. This one is one I really, really liked quite a bit. I've seen, like Hunter was talking about, a lot of the iterations of this. And in fact, my favorite one is Edgar Wright's The World's End, which is kind of a body
Mhm.
snatch type movie. I know Carrie and Hunter also like The Faculty. There's
Yes.
a body snatcher style movie. And then, of course, yeah, you have the remake from the 70s.
Mhm.
That is also very, very good. And some people like adore and it's like their favorite. Um, that one from the 70s, it took a little bit to grow on me, but like I like the
Mhm.
slow burn nature of it and stuff. But I think I might like the original a little more than the 70s. I'd have to rewatch the 70s one to try to figure out, but I really like the classic like black and white nature of it where it's like um it feels like one of those like safe, like suburbia kind of,
Mhm.
straight laced like 1950s, where everything's right and stuff. But then you have this society where they're noticing that things are off. And I feel
Mhm.
like horror that's black and white like that from the 50s and stuff is just really interesting because it's like a classic monster movie. And I love how, like you said, like they got into the whole like like kind of changeling lore myth where it's
Mhm.
like your father's there, he's mowing the grass, he's doing all the stuff you would normally do,
He has the same memories.
but that's not my father, right?
Mhm.
So, it's like, how do you know? I just know there's something off about him. He's doing all the same stuff, but he's different. And then
Mhm.
like how they go into like showing the pods and
Mhm.
distrust of people, and then like when people find out that someone else is different or the person that they thought they knew all along is one of them, or something like that. And just like that whole concept is really uh creepy and scary, and just I
Mhm.
love how it unfurls and stuff. And this is the thing that I was mentioning with Carrie. We were talking about the ending. So yeah, blanket spoiler alert if
Mhm.
I haven't already said that for some of these. But in this one, um, when it gets to the ending, I thought I was going to take on more of a Halloween 3 Season of the Witch type ending, where it's like, where he's like, yeah,
Stop
stop
it! Stop
it.
it!
I thought with this one, he was going to be in the street like, they're already here. And it was just
Mhm.
going to end with him screaming that. And then it didn't. It went on because like he was running through the street, the traffic, like trying to say, guys, be careful. There's people
Mhm.
out there, they're gonna take you over. They're already here. He was freaking out. And then he like looked in the back of a truck and there's pods everywhere. And it's like they're gonna take over the world, or at least this suburb that I'm in. And
Mhm.
um and then they have a whole scene after that. I don't know, maybe it's kind of like the issue that people have with like the Psycho ending. Spoiler for Psycho, but people are like, they have like a whole
Yeah.
thing in Psycho where they explain the 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 disease or the whatever uh,
Mhm.
Norman Bates has. And then in this, they have a whole scene that's kind of like that, where they're people are doubting this guy, and then they go, I saw a truck that had pods in it or something like that.
Mhm.
And I'm like, we already saw that. You didn't have to explain it at the last scene. It would have been more
Yeah.
interesting and scary if you had just ended it on the street, I think. But
To be fair,
regardless,
though, they did set up that hospital scene at the very beginning, though, with him like retelling the story. So you kind of have to go back to like
that makes
why he was there in the first place, because they opened it up with him being brought into this kind of insane asylum to be looked at the police station, and he's like, this is what I saw, and this is pretty much his story being told through the eyes of the audience.
that's a good point.
So
Where you wrap it around and then they
Mhm.
go, he's telling the truth.
Yeah,
But
he's not crazy.
I still think you could have framed it
Mhm.
like you didn't have to begin the movie like that
Yeah.
either, and then just could have just ended it the way I
Mhm.
said, because it's better. But no, I really enjoyed this one quite a bit. I thought it was very creepy, and it just like I love really cool like black and white monster movies. What'd you think, Carrie?
Yeah, I also really love this one. Yeah, I think you're right, Hunter. I guess they had to end the movie like that because they set it up, the framing from the beginning, and he's like narrating throughout the whole thing. But yeah, like Chad said, I think the better ending would have been to cut it
Yeah.
with yelling in the street. I think that's also the ending that we're conditioned to expect because that, I believe, is how the 70s film ends.
Yeah.
Mr.
Oh,
Red
it is.
Yeah. Mhm.
Essentially, yeah. So I think I still like the remake, the 70s remake, better than this version, but I did really, really love this version as
fair.
well. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have much more to add. I think that you guys didn't already discuss. But this was really solid. I would love to watch this one again.
Hunter, I know she's acting just like Carrie would.
But she's not Carrie?
That's not Carrie. What to do here? I have to live with this thing. It's like, anyways, we can move on to the next movie, which is, I'm probably in trouble now. Which is, help. A, a bucket of blood. Roger Corman's A Bucket of Blood. Wait a second. Who started with the last one? It was Hunter.
Hunter.
It was me.
I'll start with this one. This one is a really good movie. I liked A Bucket of Blood a lot. Over at the Dill Pickle Movie Network, my buddy Dylan and my buddy Matt, who previously were featured on Welcome to Primetime, doing a versus bracket that we did where we talked about some of their favorite horror movies, and they like fought off to see whose movie would win and stuff, and it was really fun. But they, over at the Dill Pickle Movie Network, do a show called Frame Wreck, and they had a whole episode where they talked about A Bucket of Blood. And Frame Wreck is a show about bad movies, like so bad they're good movies, but that's not that. That's not why they were covering it. They were doing it because of like, Roger Corman and his
passing. Yeah.
He passed recently. Rest in peace, Roger Corman, the late great legend Roger Corman, who was such a great.
He produced and directed so many movies,
and producer and writer, all that. Yeah, he just like the way. And Carrie and I. So I just wanted to refer, if you want more discussion about A Bucket of Blood, if you loved it like we did, you can go over to the Frame Wreck and watch that. But also, I was excited because they had talked so positively about it. So I was like, oh, I'm finally going to watch A Bucket of Blood. And then Carrie and I decided to watch this on Shudder as the with the Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs.
I want to look up that one because that sounds so much fun.
It is very fun. It's longer, of course, because this is a very short movie. And they talked about how Roger Corman loved to cut his movies down to like 78 minutes so that it would only fit on 2 film reels instead of 3, which he was always like trying to cut costs and save costs, stuff like that. And Joe Bob was also saying like that might have made the movie better because it was so tight and brief and like had no fat on it.
Mhm.
So I think that's perfect. But yeah, if you get a chance to watch that, Roger Corman and his wife do show up. I'm sorry, Carrie. Do you remember his wife's name? Julie Corman. I was right. Julie
Sorry.
Corman. No worries. Yeah. So they are both on there. There's a lot of people like kind of listening to their conversation. Bruce Dern also shows up. So it's a really fun way to watch it because they'll cut away after like a scene, and then they'll talk about the movie, and then they'll go back to the movie, and then cut back to them talking. It's a really really fun way to watch it. But yeah, this is a very short movie, but I really dug it. I thought it was a very interesting one, kind of a take on the beatnik era of people that like went to like like was it coffee houses, or is like when coffee started to become like a
Yeah.
thing? And they would do like beat poetry and just like be artists and things like
Very pretentious people.
yeah, yep. And I this one looks so good. It looks so clean, like black and white. And had his name Dick Miller,
Dick Miller. Yep.
who is in Gremlins and other things you might have seen. And just a really great
Chopping
actor.
baby.
What'd you say?
Chopping Mall baby.
Oh yeah,
He's,
Chopping Mall. That's right.
your dead meat guy.
Yeah, Chopping Mall. And I thought he was great in this. I loved his character, who is just like a busboy at the beatnik like coffee house or whatever where they're doing poetry. And he takes the poetry to heart, and he's like really trying to like be someone. And so he goes back and he's trying to like make models of things. And again, I said spoiler alert. One, he kills his cat that's living in the wall, and then he decides to make a statue out of it. And then he doesn't stop there because people are interested in this, and he thinks that his self-worth is only coming from doing this type of thing. He starts to kill people and turn them into statues, plaster statues with clay and whatnot. And some people, or at least one person, doesn't really notice what is really going on. But when people do, it kind of turns into a little bit of a comedy where people are like, the way they react, like what
the manager, like the manager finding out that it's a real cat and then being scared of Dick Miller's character through the entire movie is hilarious.
Exactly.
He's like, go to a movie, here, half your payment for your busboy job, just leave, get out of here.
Yeah, and it does really get into that. His character and everything just becomes really, really, really creepy because, especially like towards the end when he's like, I need to keep doing this, and I'll do this to you or something like that, and like the woman
make you immortal.
Yeah, when the woman runs, yeah, exactly. When the woman runs, you're like, he's gonna chase after her. He's definitely gonna chase after her, and it's gonna be really scary, and it is. And I'm just like, oh my god, okay. So yeah, I just loved the story it was able to tell. I thought it was a really creepy plot. I think Dick Miller was so good in this role as this kind of unhinged guy. You could actually see this happening. Like, I don't think he could make statues as quick or as as quick or as good, I guess, as he
must have unlimited clay because my god.
Right, because they look so good until they started to appear as people with like their fingers poking out and stuff. We're like, oh, I know what this actually is.
It moved.
Yeah, it was a really, really interesting concept. I did not think this is what the movie was going to be called A Bucket of Blood, because I don't even know if there's much blood in it at all.
No blood, I don't think.
So it's very surprising, but yeah, I thought it was incredible. I really, really like this one. Carrie.
Yeah, I agree. Also thought it was fantastic. Again, another one that's like kind of a horror comedy. And the acting is really incredible in this. Like, I think it really elevates the movie overall. I think just well filmed, like the concept is really interesting. And yeah, I just thought this was a really enjoyable movie. Would really highly recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, same. I love this movie. I watched it for the first time for this podcast. I've heard like Dead Meat talk about it. Like I haven't watched their kill count for it, but I've heard them talk about how this is one of their favorite B-level horror movies. Dick Miller is great in this movie. Just given this kind of young energy of like he wants to be somebody so bad that he takes that extra step. The naming of the paint, the clays, the statues are amazing. You have dead cat and you have murdered man.
Yeah,
Just
right.
one happens. It's hilarious. One of my favorite scenes is after he kills the undercover police officer for his first statue. The landlady comes in and he's trying to like hide the body in the cellar, and all of a sudden just the hand drops down and it's just dripping there, and he uses the pot to like catch the blood. He has no idea like how to do it, so the hand's just dripping there. I think just that's unintentionally hilarious because he's like trying to hide the body, and all of a sudden just one arm like peers like out of frame. It's amazing. This movie is hilarious. I think Dick Miller is really good. Probably one of my favorite Roger Corman directed movies. Um, so yeah, this one's high up for me as well.
Have you seen a lot of Roger Corman directed movies?
Not a lot, but I've seen a few of them.
But we will be covering another one on the next episode when we cover The Little Shop of Horrors.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's more Roger Corman to come. But yeah, seeing this, I want to watch a lot more of them, like The Raven and other things that are just supposed to be some of his best works and stuff like that. But also, one other side note that I remembered from the last drive-in was that Dick Miller was named Walter Paisley in this. Walter Paisley. And apparently he was in a lot of other movies where they just used the same name, Walter Paisley. It's the same character. But not the same character name. So it's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. I think he also appears in Chopping Mall as that name.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So kind of a throwback to that character in that movie. But yeah, I think we would all recommend A Bucket of Blood, so check that out. And that we can move on to the next one, which is the Tingler. The Tingler, yeah. So wait a second. Is this on Carrie to start?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead, Carrie.
Okay, so this is a William Castle directed movie, and he was really known for the types of, I don't know, kind of like schlocky stunts that he pulls like in this movie. And he, I think, often would go around and like tour the movie throughout the US and kind of pull these same sorts of things, which is kind of fun. And, he starts the movie with an introduction like, oh, if you're scared, just scream loud. And like later, everything comes back. Like, I guess the movie is basically about this thing that lives inside of us, all of us. And I can't remember like what sets it off, but you start like hallucinating really scary stuff. And then the Tingler, the thing that lives inside you, and it can kill you unless you scream, and screaming kills it. And Vincent Price is in this. He plays, I think, a doctor or mortician or something. And he's like investigating the Tingler and trying to prove that it's real and find one alive. And the whole movie, I think this is the most fun part, is the ending kind of ends at a movie theater, and there's a lot of parts where the screen just goes black, and there's the announcements like like, hold on, we're trying to get it, and you need to scream, and all. It's so fun. It gets really meta and into it, and I guess really trying to scare the theater audience. So I thought this was just so much fun. I think the story itself um leaves a little to be desired. And there's like some subplots with Vincent Price is like married to this woman who is also like attacking him or something. Like, I'm not really quite sure what was going on with that. I know he shoots her at one point. She poisons him.
Poison him. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think really the strength of this movie is kind of like the gimmicks in it. Oh my gosh, there was something else. Now I can't remember. So, the part I did think was really cool is the one guy basically kills his wife, and you think she's like having all these hallucinations because of the Tingler, but later it's revealed that her husband was actually like just basically chasing her around with a mask and stuff, which I thought was really cool. And I thought those scenes were pretty scary.
Yeah, it actually kind of reminded me of like Les Diaboliques. Seen that. So, Hunter, what do you think?
So I really enjoyed this movie. I wish theaters would like replay this, but like do the gimmicks like during the theater scene, like have something jump out, just have fun with it, because experiencing this like in a crowd with like that kind of like 4D D-box type thing would be very interesting with the technology nowadays. But Vincent Price is really good in this movie. I think it's directed really well. Like, you have some really good shots. It looks nice for a black and white movie. It's one that kind of have been preserved with time, so it kind of looks really, really good. The Tingler creature, I think, is awesome. It's scary. I actually thought for a lot of this movie that Vincent Price, like, his character killed the wife of the other guy until he came around, because I thought he was like doing experiments on her to see like what happens when somebody who can't scream, gets scared. Like I thought that's where they were going with this, but then it turns out that he was just like trying to scare his wife to kill her. So I don't know if I like that. I would probably like it more if that was kind of like he was the scientist who was going over the top, and then found somebody who was a mute and deaf who couldn't scream, and like trying to figure out, like, do an experiment to see like how that would affect it. But I really had fun with this movie. It's not, as Carrie said, it's not the tightest script that we've seen for this episode, but it is definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the Tingler. I like the style that you guys are talking about with William Castle, and just like how it opens. It's just like, what an opening, where you just have like, just like a face of somebody just like, ah!
Yeah, the three faces.
Like, jeez. It's just like really cool, like how it opens with that whole gimmick, just like analyzing the Scream, and as big fans of the Scream franchise that we love so much, where you have like a killer whose mask resembles that of someone screaming, like, is just a really interesting thing, that a movie like this that analyzes kind of like, fear and screaming, and like screaming being kind of like a catharsis of the release of that fear, and stuff, and just like, what if we all have this creature that's in us that attaches to our spine and it feeds on our fear? And I'm still not sure if it's like the screaming gets rid of it, or if the screaming helps it, because at the very end it says, if you don't think that you have a Tingler inside of you, just remember, don't scream. So I'm just like a little confused about that part.
I think screaming is supposed to stop it, and I think it gets activated when someone is at a higher level of like fear.
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out why they would say don't scream.
Yeah.
But
it was worded a little. It's like, if you don't believe in it, like, I dare you not to scream.
Yeah, to not scream.
Okay, now I can see what. Okay,
Mhm.
I gotcha. That makes a little more sense now.
Let it live
More.
in your body the entire time.
But yeah, I like the story of it. I think Vincent Price was very good,
Mhm.
and I liked how he had this idea, and so that was kind of what he was doing, because he was trying to scare this woman so badly, like by like threatening her with the gun, that I guess to see if he could activate the Tingler, and stuff. So there's like a little bit of that, but then you get to see the whole effect of someone who's mute and can't scream, and to see if someone could actually die of fright. And then she does, and then he's able to remove the Tingler. And like Hunter said, is like kind of a creepy thing, also kind of a silly looking thing
Yeah.
at times. But like when it like crawls up his arm, is like biting him or something.
Mhm.
That was really scary. But like when it's on like the movie theater projector, it's really weird and silly,
Mhm.
and stuff. And then it's like you have a movie within a movie at one point. It's like a silent
Yeah.
film, so it's just like it feels like a movie lover's kind of dream. And I know,
Mhm.
like I've mentioned before, critically acclaimed with Bibbs and Whitney. Whitney Seibold is the reason why I wanted to watch this, because he's praised this movie like it's like he loves it, and because he's also like a projectionist. So I
Mhm.
feel like someone who does that, like where it plays with projection and stuff like that, is really fun. So
Yeah.
uh, and I love the subplot, yeah, of the mute woman and the killer and stuff like that, and how he gets his comeuppance, where the Tingler reactivates the body of his dead wife and comes after him and stuff. I thought that was really, really uh, kind of fun and scary as well. But yeah, this movie is really cool. I want to watch more William Castle movies, because
Mhm.
like the Kara was talking about like the gimmick of the movie, but like also how fun that is. That it's just like there's like thing,
Yeah.
Hunter said like I wish movie theaters would have like
Mhm.
events again, kind of like if you watch which we should have put this on the list, but the 1990s popcorn, where it's like about like an event at the movie theater, and it's kind of
Mhm.
like you go there, you dress up, you have a lot of fun, and I feel like people just don't do that as much, and
Mhm.
I kind of wish it
To
would.
be fair, COVID really stopped a lot of that too. So.
True, but like now that we're kind of back to a thing, I feel like movie theaters
Mhm.
should do better to try and make it a reason to want to come to the theaters and stuff. But that's
Yeah.
a tangent we can get down at some point. Maybe we can do a whole episode on movie theaters and other things like that. But for now, that's the end of our 50s
Mhm.
episode. So we're well away into our 61 days. That's like 18 films done, which is really cool. So now
Yeah.
we got to rank these guys. So we've all prepared our own rankings of these
Mhm.
films, and we'll go ahead and start with Hunter.
All right, so I'm going from 6 to 1. My number 6 is Mother Riley Meets the Vampire. Number 5 is Godzilla. Number 4 is The Tingler. Number 3, A Bucket of Blood. Number 2, Strangers on a Train. And number 1, Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
All right, and I'll go next. My number 6 is also old Mother Riley meets
Mhm.
the vampire. Um, my number 5, I think this might have been the same as Hunter, is Godzilla.
Yep,
Uh, my number 4 is the Tingler.
that's mine also.
Okay, my number 3 is A Bucket of Blood.
Hmm.
But I think we reversed here, Hunter. My number 2 is Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and my number
Oh,
1 is Strangers on a Train.
nice.
And just I've been kind of going over and ranking a lot of these, like all the movies from all three. And
Hmm.
Strangers of a Train on a Train is my favorite of all 3 decades so far. So
Oh, awesome.
I thought that one's kind of a masterpiece. So yeah,
Hmm.
Carrie, how'd you rank these?
Yeah, pretty similar. My number 6 is Mother Riley Meets the Vampire. My number 5 is Tingler. My number 4 is Godzilla. My
Hmm.
number 3 is A Bucket of Blood. My number 2 is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And my number 1 is Strangers on a Train.
Nice, nice.
Awesome.
Some great movies there in the 50s, guys. And
Hmm.
like I've been saying, we did the 30s, We did the 40s. We just did the 50s right now. Now we got to go through to the 2020s. And so next we'll bring you the 60s. But, if you like this, tell us how you felt about these movies, in the comments. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. And we're excited to get done with this 61 days. It's a hell of a task, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Hunter, you want to close it out?
All right. If you guys did enjoy this, please hit that like button, subscribe to Welcome to Primetime, and remember, stay scared.